Hey folks, I've been wanting to get a recording out to you for several days. It's been a hectic week for me, but hey, we're a day away from the first. Get this, the first accumulating snowfall for much of the central part of the country, and it's not even the middle of November yet. Well, it's almost November 15th. This is a little early, but it's not going to be a major event. I want to make that very clear. First thing I want to talk about is the temperatures. That's pretty much a bigger story in the next 6 to 10 days than the accumulating snow. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the pattern for the winter. I've been meaning to do a post on El Nino and whether or not it's developing and its potential impacts, and I really haven't done my full winter forecast yet. But here we go. I will start with the temperature map, and this is not your typical map that you will see on the nightly news of temperatures. The colors represent below normal versus above normal temperatures, and we are at the present day now, moving into this weekend. I want you to notice how the air mass that you see, when you see the blues, that's cooler than normal, the blues and the greens. This first shot of cold air moves more to the mid-Atlantic states, so it is moving more in an eastward direction and only giving the southeast kind of a glancing blow here. The next air mass that I'm going to show you, you're going to notice it's going to come out as from Canada and move straight to the south and east. The first air mass high pressure system was over here in the mid-Atlantic states, which really didn't drive the cold too far into the south, but the next high pressure system will end up over Louisiana or Mississippi, and that clockwise motion around that will really drive the cold air. We're probably going to have our first freeze of the season, almost down to I-4 by next Wednesday. Let me put this in motion so you can see. There's the first cool air mass. Here comes the second one, and it is brutal, and it will probably have its most impact in terms of temperatures compared to normal in the state of Missouri. And those are Celsius degrees, but when I do the math, we're talking about high temperatures for several days, near or below freezing, and probably in the wake of a little bit of snow cover as well. So it's not so much that this cold air mass is unusual in terms of its strength. We can get these brutal shots in November, but typically they don't last very long or are not followed by another one. And there's at least another reinforcing shot coming in next weekend. But as we move toward, this is next Saturday and Sunday, the weekend before Thanksgiving, there will be a shift in the jet stream. The jet stream will be more aligned like this, which will allow some of the warmer Pacific air to flood much of the country. Once again, that's coming up the weekend before Thanksgiving. Now let's go right to the snow. Here comes the system on the GFS model. There it is developing late tonight, early tomorrow morning in Kansas. Ignore that frame in terms of its colors. Most of that green there is snow, and then here it is late afternoon Saturday. Notice how fast it's moving, and we're only talking about a very weak little area of low pressure here that's shooting out. There's a stronger system waiting back here. Here it is. It's going to move across the base of the trough of the jet stream and probably be a bigger precipitation maker starting here and moving northeast as well. You're going to see that as I advance this forward. So let me show you. Once again, there's the system that is moving through the Ohio Valley now, and here comes the following system right there. Sunday night into Monday, and that cold air is driven a little further south. There's a little pressure in Georgia, and notice that's a pretty decent snow for the Ohio and maybe even the northern parts of the Tennessee Valley if the GFS holds true. Here's the higher resolution radar reflectivity from the NAM. This is a prediction of what the radar is going to look like. This is 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock Central Time. Notice the leading edge of this precip might be a little bit of rain, and here's what I think is happening. I think because it's coming in, if you notice here, this is 12 o'clock noon. This is during the warmer part of the day. Yes, temperatures are going to be close to freezing, and yes, once the precipitation gets strong enough, it'll switch over to snow, but the leading edge of this looks to be a little bit of rain changing to snow, and it's moving very fast, so I'm not real impressed with the accumulation potential here. The accumulation potential will be highest where the snow occurs early in the day or again later in the day. When it moves through Columbia, Jefferson City, and central Missouri, it will likely have a tough time accumulating a lot. Here comes the second system, by the way, that's going to take more of the I-44 route and potentially give some accumulating snow to the Ozarks and maybe even southeast Missouri. I think the Weather Service in St. Louis has got a good idea here on their predictions. I agree with about a 3-inch amount here. It tapers off, though. The gradient's almost going to be west to east because of, by the time it's in this zone here, by the time the precip's in this zone here, the low-level temperatures will be just above freezing. And don't forget the ground, obviously, is still pretty warm as well. So I would say closer to the 1-inch in Columbia, maybe even only a dusting, maybe a 1/2 inch in St. Louis. and maybe 2 to 3 over toward Kansas City. Now, keep in mind, there's going to be a second stripe of snow right in this area here that will be on Sunday night and Monday of 1 to 2. Okay, not real sure that's going to get down into the Mississippi Delta, including Stoddard County, where I'm from, but that's questionable. If there is going to be a snow there, it's going to be pretty wet as at the tail end of the event. Once again, the first part of this is Saturday and Saturday night. The second part is a second system, Sunday night and early Monday. Here's a look at the GFS. It kind of shows the two different stripes of snowfall. And then look at the amount it shows in Kentucky and Tennessee and Ohio. That's pretty unusual for November standards. But this is the first part Saturday, and only in that light blue is it over 2 inches. So I think Columbia is maybe closer to 1. And this second stripe I think is going to be a little further to the north, probably right there, with about 2, maybe 2.5 in the Ozarks, and then it'll increase from central and southern parts of Indiana in this direction here. I think this may be a little bogus on this south side of that system. So I want to take this map and talk about the winter real quick, because we are potentially having an El Nino. It may never be officially declared, but the effects of the warmer eastern Pacific waters are already being felt. And there's been several signals across the globe that El Nino, at least an El Nino type regime in terms of the jet stream and the weather pattern, is in place. So my take on the winter forecast, and I'm still working on this, is that there will be cooler than normal temperatures in this corridor here. A lot of this, though, north of this line will be mostly because of very cold, dry air masses. They get shoved in kind of a direction like this. I think the cooler than normal temperatures on the south half of this, including parts of Florida, are because of what we call southern stream storm systems in the subtropical jet that'll generally lead to a lot more cloudy days and a lot more precipitation days in this corridor here. And I think there's a good potential that areas outlined in this area right here probably end up with above normal snowfall for the year. Probably near normal snowfall in this zone, and below normal snowfall with probably some really extreme episodes of warmer temperatures up here in the northern plains. When it comes to Florida, I think we're likely to be cooler than normal, with probably more precipitation than normal during the cold season, which is typically our drier season. And occasionally, what'll happen is we'll get these fronts that'll come down. We've already seen the hints of this already. These fronts that come down like this, and the tail end of the fronts, low pressure spins up along them and then moves up north and east. Now, with there'll be several probably stronger, what I call blockbuster storms like this. If the low pressure system moves up or west of the Appalachians, the chances of severe weather and heavy rain in this corridor are pretty high. If the low pressure doesn't really get its act together until maybe just east of Florida and then blows up into a big nor'easter, obviously that can lead to some really extreme cold for the state of Florida. I think this is going to be a season for the southeast where there's extreme variability from one week to the next in terms of the weather. In the central plains and the Midwest and much of Missouri and the Ozarks, depending on the storm tracks, there could be some significant snow this year, but there also could be some very cold, dry periods as well. And I don't think overall it's going to be as cold as last winter, at least in the Ozarks and in Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. But I think there will certainly be some wild weather this winter, and overall there will be a general consensus that there's been 2 pretty rough winters in a row. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed. That was a kind of a hodgepodge of weather for you, and have a great weekend. And I'll be cheering on both my Gators and my Tigers this weekend. Go Gators, M-I-Z.